Can you imagine having to run down the street late at night? You're by yourself. You're a female. You don't know whose house you're running to. You're just banging on the door, hoping that someone will let you in. And that person opens the door and they're like, no, you can't come in. So they basically force you to move off of their porch. And then you just keep running. You keep running to another house, hoping that that person will let you in. And they do. They put their dogs up. They allow you to come in. This is a complete stranger that I didn't know, but this stranger helped to save my life. And the person I was running from was my ex-husband. I want to be really sensitive when I make this video because there are lives involved. There are people who I haven't told that I'm going to do this video, and the purpose of me doing the video is for people to be able to notice mental health spikes and mental health downward spirals. At the time, I had no clue what signs to look for. As a matter of fact, I got married really early to a U.S. Army soldier, which played a major part in some of the issues that I'm going to go over today. So I want to be sensitive because he's no longer here. He passed away. My mother is no longer here, but the power of prayer saved my life. The power of forgiveness helped me to live a better life. And then the power of knowing the tools and tips for mental health support is huge. And so this is what this video is about. I married a U.S. soldier back in my 20s. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew I wanted to be together with this person. I won't say his name. I'll refer to him as Jay. And at the time, Jay had already gone through one tour in Saudi. I didn't know anything about anybody really being in the Army, even though I had family members who had been in the Army. They never shared stories or anything about, what the soldiers have to go through, what they have to endure, what they have to see. And so dating this person before marriage, I saw a few red flags that stood out to me, but my ex-husband had also told me about some trauma he had gone through. And so I thought a lot of his anger and a lot of his outbursts and things like that were associated with that. And I won't go into that story because that would have been his personal story to tell. Due to, like I said, some of the trauma that he experienced, I allowed for some things to just go unconfronted. Let me just be very clear. There was never any domestic violence as far as me fighting him. My ex-husband, Jay, never put his hands on me. We did have some heated arguments. He made some threats here and there, but mostly the threats would be to unalive himself. He said that so often that at times I was just like, I didn't believe him. Sometimes I would say, well, just do it. Like, why do you keep saying that? People that actually want to do it don't talk about it. They just do it. So after a while, it just became like him crying wolf. I just felt like he's never going to do anything to himself. So this particular day, he was speeding and I was like, please slow down. Like, we got into it. And he said, I'll drive the car off of this bridge. When he would say things like that, I would pretty much kind of get into it with him a different way. Like, I would go toe to toe with him in an argument just to kind of distract him. I know it sounds weird or counterproductive. So what I would tell him is, I'm not riding back with you. If I'm not driving, then I'll just stay here. And so he would finally give in and let me drive. It would be months before I would get in the car with him for, another trip, because I'm like, no, last time you were threatening that you were going to run the car off the bridge. And so he would either let me drive or he would go by himself. One other time we got into it about something and he took the iron and he threw it at my vanity. Not at me. He threw it at my vanity. And I got really angry. I got so angry, I think I scared him. But what I did was I said, okay, so since you want to throw things, let's go. So I took vases, I took everything, and I just started throwing it around the room. And he finally was able to grab my arms, and he was like, calm down. It's okay. I'm sorry. And so again, sometimes I would match his energy, and for some reason that, would calm him down. Again, he never physically put his hands on me. I do want to make that point really clear. He has children, and so if they ever see this video, I want this video to be made with integrity. This is my truth. This is what happened to me. And again, this is to highlight challenges of mental health that go unchecked or unnoticed. I think it was like around the 4th of July, I was trying to convince him to go watch the fireworks. That was like a tradition for us. And so I would always try to get him to go. And for some reason, he would be like, no, I don't want to do that. One day he told me that the fireworks bothered him. It sounded like gunshots. At that time, I didn't care. Like, I didn't understand that there were triggers from things he had seen, when he went to war. I just wanted to go, selfishly see the fireworks. And I wanted him to go with me. So we got into a brief argument, and he said a statement that still kind of gives me chills. This is when I started looking at him in a different light when it came to the arguments. His words to me were, I need you to be quiet because you're starting to look like an Iraqi to me. That's what he said. Me in my prideful fashion, I still said a few words, but not much, because at this point I noticed his look was a little bit different and he was serious. And I kind of understood what the mission could be if he were to come up against an Iraqi. The argument kind of died down, and that was it, for that particular thing. And like I said, we would have different spats here and there. I noticed things, would make him mad. One day he was cutting the grass, and I was in the house doing things, and he came and banged on the door. And I'm looking at him like, why are you banging on the door? His voice was escalated. He was like, you could at least brought me something to drink. And I'm like, I didn't know you were thirsty. All you had to do was just say, hey, can you bring me something to drink? Well, you should have known that. Like, it was a lot that he wanted me to assume. There was a lot that he felt like I should know. Looking back now, there are some things I could have done better. There were some areas that I could have been a little more supportive. I wouldn't know what he went through until the night everything went left. There was one incident where he was helping me move some things from my salon to transition to another salon. And this was earlier in our relationship when we were still dating. I was still kind of getting to know him. He basically got upset because he felt like I hadn't let the owner know that I was leaving, which I had given her plenty notice. She was okay with me leaving. But in his mind, he felt like I was leaving without proper notice. That conversation would come up later because I then found out that's where the childhood triggers came from. And so I would assume that a lot of the things that he was triggered by came from that. And again, I won't go into that story, but, after we got moved into the newer salon, we had a conversation and I understood a little bit more about the childhood trauma that he had. But overall, he was a funny person. Like, Jay was so funny. Like, when he was in a good mood, he could make anybody laugh. He loved to entertain. He would tell me to bring my friends over, but it was just like he would go from good to not so good. It was just a lot of ups and downs. And we're looking at over 20 plus years ago. At that time, mental health wasn't really talked about a lot like it is now. It wasn't acknowledged as much as it is now. Tools weren't as readily available. It wasn't a comfortable conversation. So I would have had no idea, where to even begin with him as far as getting help or support or someone for him to talk to. He basically did everything on his own. He would hang out with his friends from time to time. He had what we call a she shed, I guess you could say, attached to the house. And he would actually go out there, very respectful when it came to drinking. He wouldn't bring alcohol in the house. As a matter of fact, when we first met, he told me he was a social drinker. And I would later find out that he would self-medicate and alcohol was the tool of choice. It got to a point where I just couldn't do anything about it. The crazy part of it is when he would go drink, he would get drunk and he would be so sweet. It's crazy to say, but he would be so nice when he was drunk. He would come in the house, and sometimes it was annoying because he would say, do you want me to cook you something to eat? He would come and ask me the same thing like 5 times, but it would be the sweetest questions. He would clean up the house, like overly clean. He would leave things spotless. But as the alcohol would wear off is when I noticed like his attitude would change and he would get like in a bitter mood. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to the night everything went left. I did try to get him some support through the Army once I noticed he was spiraling a couple times. At that time, I didn't realize, again, it was severe mental health struggles he was dealing with. I just thought he had a problem and he needed to just do something about it. He needed to get fixed some kind of way until this particular night. I'm a hairstylist. I was at that time. I got a lot of, cash money. And so throughout the day, he just would call me over and over and over again, wanting some money for something in particular. There was a time period where he couldn't work. And looking back now, mentally, he shouldn't have been working. He didn't get anything from the Army at this time, so he would, lose jobs here and there because mentally he couldn't focus. And I just was thinking he was lazy. I was thinking he just was being combative and non-compliant. It was a mental health challenge. With that said, he would call me all day, all day, all day. While I was working, I would get frustrated. I had purchased a house. This particular day, I think I was late paying the mortgage, so I was going to go to a Western Union and pay it that way, just because I had taken so long to pay it. I was adamant that I was going to pay this mortgage. This part of the story is very important because this is how you know the power of prayer saved my life. At that particular time, Jay had a truck, or I guess you could say a large SUV. He was very particular about this truck. I'm talking about rims. He kept it clean. It was a man's vehicle, and he rarely wanted me to drive it. This particular day, I think something was going on with my car. He was like, just drive my truck. I was surprised because I'm like, well, what are you going to do all day? He was like, I'll just kind of stay around and work on the yard. But in the midst of him calling me all day, he kept asking me, where did you park the truck? Are you sure nobody's scratching the truck? Did you park it way up the hill? Like he was just doing the most, to where I was like, I don't ever want to drive this truck again. God set it up this way because this would have been a catalyst later on to help save my life. So that was the first piece of the miracle. The second piece of the miracle was we had pit bulls at the time. And to keep them from getting out, we had them in 6-foot kennels inside of a fence. So their kennels were securely locked, but sometimes the fence that surrounded our house, it was kind of janky, I guess you could say. So you would have to lift up the fence in order to close it. He would get annoyed if I would come home and I didn't close the fence, but some days I just didn't feel like lifting it up and dragging it to close it. Second miracle would be this particular night when I got there in his truck. I didn't close the fence. I pulled his truck in, which he liked it back then. I didn't close the fence, and I proceeded to walk into the house. I go up the steps. I open the door, and on the floor is him sitting there. And it is pew-pews, weapons, I should say, on the floor. Clips to go in those weapons. I knew that he had one that he kept, pretty close to him. Very safe and secure because at that time his children were younger. But there were so many. I never knew. He was sitting on the floor, and when I came in the door, he said, "Did you bring the money?" That was the first thing he said, as he's doing things with these clips, and he's just kind of moving them around. But I'm looking at his eyes and I'm looking at his demeanor, and it's nothing like I had ever seen before. His eyes were pretty wide. They were expanded. They were kind of red, but not really focusing too much on me. It was almost like he was looking through me. I honestly can say I've seen him intoxicated before, but I've never seen him look like this. This was the epitome of someone who snapped. I know that now. I kind of knew it then. I didn't have the word for it, but I knew he didn't look anything like the person I knew. He wasn't acting like the person I knew. This wasn't a normal argument. This wasn't going to be a normal night. Let me back up. Before I came home, I went to the Western Union to pay the mortgage. When I got there, normally the Western Union closes at 9 o'clock. It's usually inside of a grocery store at the customer service desk. Well, it was about 8:40, 8:50, something like that. I went in there, and when I tried to pay it, the ignorant clerk was like, "Oh, it's closed." I said, "Y'all don't close till 11 o'clock. She was like, "Yeah, but Western Union closes at 9. I said, "Well, it's not 9 o'clock. And she was like, "Well, it's already closed." And she just would not take my money. So I'm thinking, okay, I'll just do it tomorrow. It is what it is. I didn't have time to argue. I was tired. Most of the time when I went in the salon, I was in there for 12 and 13 hours some days. So I was just ready to get home. So when I got home and he said, "Did you bring the money?" I said, "No." He said, "Did you pay the mortgage?" I said, "They were closed." And now, mind you, this store was probably like 5 minutes from the house. He was like, "Closed?" And this is when the profanity began. I've heard, my ex cuss before. I've heard him cuss around other people. I've heard him get mad here and there, use, a cuss word here and there, but never towards me. Never, consistently at me or with me. He just had that level of respect. And so his exact words was, that MFN store ain't closed. They don't close till 11 o'clock. And so this is when the pride kicks in, and I'm using that match him energy, or at least trying to. So with a raised voice, I said, no, the store is not closed. The Western Union was closed, but my voice was much louder. My neck was probably rolling. He said, when we get up there, that MFN store is open, we're about to be on CNN. Did y'all hear what I said? He said, if we go up here and this store is open, we're about to be on CNN. I will never forget those words because I knew what that meant. I had seen many CNN stories and a lot of them weren't good. I told you previously he would threaten to unalive himself, but this time he was inserting me, almost like the run the car off the bridge scenario. But this time he looked totally different and he meant it. He was serious. So in my head, I started trying to plan what I was going to say, what I was going to do next. I'm a creative, so a lot of times we have the ability to think outside of the box. So I started thinking, what can I say? What could I do? And honestly, y'all, I couldn't think of nothing other than to try to keep arguing with him. But even that wasn't working. I said, come on. I said, let's go. Because when you get up to this store, you're going to look stupid because I'm saying the Western Union was closed, not the store, thinking that that was going to deter him, but it did not. So he proceeded to go out the door. He said, let's go. And he didn't care about the pew-pews that were on the floor, which was not typical of his behavior. He never talked about any other weapons. This was another thing that kind of sealed the thought in my head that this was different. This was like no other argument. So as he's, yelling out all this stuff, it just seemed like everything was like my fault. The way he was saying it, he was blaming me. And I was just adding on, I guess, the icing to the cake by not bringing the money and by what he thought, I guess, was lying to him about the store being closed, which it was not. It was the Western Union portion of the customer service desk that was shut down. In my head, I'm thinking, well, if we get up here and he sees that they won't let me pay it, then things will be fine. But another part of me was thinking he's not thinking rational. So he may get in the car and be too embarrassed to even go up there. And then he may drive us to God knows where. I start thinking about the bridge. So in my head, I'm like, you have got to figure out how to not get in this car. You've got to figure it out. So as I'm thinking and I'm walking down the steps, I couldn't think of anything to prevent me from getting in his truck. You guys remember I drove the truck earlier that day. All of a sudden he said, oh no, no, we're not taking my truck to be on CNN. We're going to take your car. We're not putting my truck on CNN. I know it sounds bizarre, but this is what he was saying. This was his mode of thinking at this time. He turns around. He goes back in the house to get the keys to my car. And he even stated that. He was like, no, we're going to put your car on CNN. At this point, he's still referencing CNN. Up the stairs, in the door. As soon as he lets that door slam, now, mind you, my purse is still wrapped around me. I had on like a over-the-shoulder like bag with the cash in there and with a phone that was barely charged. Like, as a matter of fact, it was going dead. I tried to plug it in for a second when I first got in the house, but when he started acting weird, I could never fully charge the phone. When he went in the house, I waited till that door slammed, and the miracle of the gate, the fence already being open because I was too defiant to close it when I got there. I was able to run out of that gate that I never closed. which I thought was going to create an argument, but I didn't care when I first got there. Lo and behold, it's going to be an argument anyways. So I just ran. I ran and I ran and I ran till I felt like I was far enough out of his sight to knock on a door. I knocked on the door and there was a Hispanic family there. I don't know who they were because we didn't really know the neighbors in that neighborhood. They barely opened the door. It was like a crack and I heard them saying something, but I was so busy screaming, help, let me in, my husband's trying to kill me. My husband's trying to kill me. Of course, I was crying and I was screaming. I mean, just not being overly dramatic. I just really felt like he was behind me. I felt like he was chasing me. And so they were like, no, go. And I mean, looking back, I can't blame them. They didn't know me. I could have been lying. I could have been trying to get in their house. So they wouldn't let me in. Once I realized they were not going to let me in, I took off and I continued running down probably maybe 6 or 7 more houses because I was trying to get far away. I felt like at this point he had found me or he was catching up to me. And I'll try to put in the pictures of the distances between the house because I did go back to the neighborhood and I took some videos. Oh my gosh, it's triggering, but... All right, so let's go. I'm going to show you my house first. The distance I ran from my house to the first house, and then the distance from that house to the next house. But I'm going to do it in the dark. All right, let's go. This is triggering, so y'all bear with me. Okay, I'm going to try to go slow. But this white fence right here was not here. It was a wooden fence. And I think the fence that's behind this one is wooden now. Of course, I can't invade their privacy, but right here where all of this open space is, that was where the gate was. So I had to literally pull a gate open every night from both sides. If I came in last, I would have to open and close. Back there in that corner, let me see if you can see where those bags are. That's where the dog's kennels were. That's actually where he parked his truck. And ironically, that truck that's there looks similar to what his truck looked like back then. But yeah, that was a wooden fence. Well, yeah, you can see the fence was wooden there. But this was my house. And this was the distance I ran. And I'm going to try to slow down. Ran here. This fence was not up here at the time. There's a fence here, but this wasn't here at the time. So I ran through that grass and this house right here. I don't know if it's the same people. I vividly remember that red door. I'm not sure if you guys can tell, but this is the house that I ran to first. And on foot, I know it seems like I got here quick, but on foot, it took, you know, a few seconds and they wouldn't let me in. So I continued to run further because I thought he might be chasing me or driving behind me. So I was trying to drive down, I was trying to run a little bit further. So I kept running. Imagine running through this grass. See how dark it is? But I kept running, kept running. I don't know why none of these houses seemed far enough for me. So I kept running. Not this house. Kept running, and finally, for some reason, I felt safe in this house, and this is where I ended up at. So I ran up those stairs there, and I could hear her dogs when I knocked on the door. I'm not going to show the address, but I could hear her dogs, and she was kind enough to let me in. I don't know if those people still live there or not, but when I got there when I got to the second house and I banged on the door, I could hear like these dogs. They just, woo, 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 woo. And the sweet lady was like, who is it? I was like, please let me in, please. My husband's trying to kill me. And she opened the door and she was like, oh my Lord, uh, give me a second. Like, and she put the dogs up because I'm assuming they probably would have bit me. So she put the dogs up and she allowed me to come in. Again, these are strange people. They could have done anything to me, but I didn't even think that. Like, I was just thinking, get away from him, the person I knew. I was willing to go in the house of a person I didn't know to get away from the person I knew. My husband. My husband. So when she let me in, I was crying. She locked the door. She was like, let me call the police. And I told her, no. I said, no, please, just wait, just wait. And she was like, why would I wait? Like, she was getting upset with me. And I said, because it's not going to help him. The reason why I told her that was because I had called the police on him a few months back because he had came to my salon. He didn't come to do anything to me. He was having a nervous breakdown. Didn't want to be by himself. At that time, I didn't know what was happening. Another mental health challenge that went unchecked, went unnoticed. When he came to the salon and he wouldn't leave and he was just acting strange, I didn't know what he was going to do. I didn't know if he was going to just like get mad. I didn't know if he was going to start arguing with me. So one of the ladies that worked there, she walked past my station and she gave me this look like they knew him, in there. The ladies in there, they knew who he was. But she tried to, kind of play it off. She walked past my station and she looked at me and he wasn't facing her, so he couldn't see her. And she mouthed, do you want me to call the police? And I kind of just like, played it off and so I guess she saw that he was acting strange. And so the police came, they saw him outside. They then called me outside. And when I got outside, I saw him in handcuffs and golly, it hurt my feelings. It really did. He was like, Lisa, please tell them I'm not a threat to you. Please don't let them take me. And the police officer kind of pulled me to the side. I told him that he was, in the Army and he had some challenges or whatever. And they were like, he is acting a little strange though. We're a little bit concerned. So we're going to take him. And he never let me live that down. As a matter of fact, he would tell me he couldn't feel, his thumb. His thumb was numb after that. When they let him out, I had gone to stay with my sister because I felt like he was just going to be so pissed off. So I asked them, the system, courts, whatever. I said, can y'all please just let me know when he's out? Well, they send you out like this recorded message saying that, instead of them warning me that he was going to get out, I got a message saying he was out. So I couldn't sleep. I told my sister, I was like, I can't sleep. I don't think he knew where this sister lived at the time, but I just felt like he was going to find it. And funny story about that, I couldn't sleep. So I jumped up to move my car into her garage, and there was this van that was creeping down the road. And I was like, oh my God, here he comes. And I'm trying to zoom my car into her garage, and I knocked her mirror off. And it wasn't even him. Like, I don't even think I heard from him for like a day or two. He was so mad at me. I'm saying all that to say when the lady asked me about calling the police, I was like, no, that's not going to help him. And, he's going to be angry. And she was just like, it doesn't matter. Like, if he's trying to kill you, we have to call the police. And I was just like, no, let me call my family. Give me a minute to just think. I just need a minute to think. This is when I called my mom. Because at this point, I'm realizing he didn't chase me here. He can't find me. And in my head, I'm saying, he's going to go get my parents. He's going to do something to them because he can't get to me. The reason why I said that is because months before this happened, there was a major story, where a husband had gone to his mother-in-law's house trying to find his wife. And when he got there, he unalived the mother-in-law and he pew-pewed his wife in the face. She survived. So in my head, I'm thinking, he can't get to me, so he's going to go get my mom. That story popped up in my head for some reason. Because my parents didn't live that far, I felt like by now he could have gotten to them. So I called my mom. She answered probably on the first ring. And at this point, I'm clearing my voice up because I don't want to scare her. I said, hey, Mom, what you doing? Just like I just said it to you. She said, what's wrong? I'm just getting to where I don't cry when I tell this part of the story. So hopefully today will be no different. I said, nothing. What y'all doing? She said, what's wrong? I said, why do you keep asking me that? What are y'all doing? Then I said, is Jay over there? Still in the most playful voice I could muster up. She said, no, why would he be over here? And what's wrong? I said nothing. At this point, I'm getting irritated. I said, why do you keep asking me that? She said, I woke up last night in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep. Something in my spirit was disturbed. And I felt like something was going on with you. She said, I woke your dad up and I told him, pray with me because something is going on with Lisa and I don't know what it is. And they prayed for me the night before. That prayer saved my life. I believe that prayer is the reason why I drove his truck that day. I believe 100% that prayer is the reason I did not fully close that gate that day. I also believe that prayer is the reason I found this wonderful young lady who kept me safe, who allowed me to come in, who didn't judge me, who was willing to do whatever I wanted to do. So from the point my mom told me that, I could not hold the tears in anymore because I knew there was a God and I knew he heard her prayer. I started crying and I told her, I believe he's trying to kill me. At that point, of course, everything just changed because she woke my dad up again and he was ready to, confront the situation. He wanted to know where I was, where he was. And I won't go into that because my dad was just being a dad that, was very protective. So I'll leave the details of that part out. All in all, I had a friend that came and got me. I told, my mom, just sit tight, hang tight. I don't want daddy to go to jail. Just, y'all just hang tight. I'm fine. I told her I was going to let my friend take me to a hotel because I really needed to just decompress. It was just something I had never imagined would happen to me. It felt like I was in a movie. That's the best way I could describe it. Me running down the street from house to house felt like I was in a movie. I don't have any other way to describe it. The look on his face, the weapons on the floor, how everything played out, it couldn't have been my life. There's no way this was happening to me, but it was. And the power of prayer saved my life. My mom has passed away since then. She passed away in May of 2018. And my then husband, now ex-husband, passed away in 2021. So it's been 5 years from the time I'm making this video and 8 years for my mom from the time I'm making this video. There was a lot of things I was angry about. And at one point, I hated him. I felt like I had, at that time, done everything I could do to support him, not only emotionally, but financially. Looking back now, no. Emotionally, I wasn't doing all I could do because I didn't know. Financially, I bought a lot of things that I thought would help him emotionally. And there's a tip there. Buying things for someone that is having mental health challenges doesn't help at all. So because I lost a lot of material things, I hated him. Not realizing at the time I could get all of that stuff back. But God had to show me, you left with your life, you still have a career, you can get all of these things over again. After the divorce and the separation, like I said, we had multiple conversations. He went and got help. He moved back to his hometown and we would talk maybe once a year. He had reached out to me during the time my mom was really sick. And I shared with him, her challenges in her body. So by the time he called back again, she had already passed. I told him, I was like, yeah, she passed away. And he was just like, oh my God, no. Like he just had a hard time accepting it. Fast forward, my birthday came up 2021. February, the weekend of my birthday, my family had taken me out and he had sent me a text message earlier, but then he called and he was being silly, his old silly self, the person that I grew to love. He was asking how everybody was and I told everybody at the table that he was asking about them. They were saying hello and he began to ask for forgiveness for everything that he had taken me through. Now, I think I skipped it because I was going to talk about it before, but basically I had gone to a church service maybe 3 or 4 years before this conversation we were having. And in that service, they talked about forgiveness. I was able to let all of the hate I had for him, I let it all go. I think over time, he had asked me to forgive him. He had told me he was sorry about everything. And I told him, like, in that particular conversation, I may have alluded to, I'm over that. I'm not worried about that. You're good. You know, I forgive you. But it was something about this night that he called on my birthday. He said, I wasn't myself, and I just want to make sure you forgive me. I said, I forgave you a long time ago. You're good. And so we went back to, laughing and joking. He was like, all right, Bucky, I still love you, Bucky. And I laughed or whatever. And we hung the phone up, and I went on to continue to enjoy my birthday dinner with my family. And a week later, I believe to the exact day, I would get a call from his daughter telling me that he had passed away. And the conversation was just horrible. I'm giving you guys a lot of details, and I hope what you got out of this is the power of forgiveness is not just for the other person, but it's for you. If I had not chose to forgive and I had found out that something had happened to him and I didn't let him know that I forgave him, or if I didn't forgive him, I would be living with that guilt. I'm sad that he's no longer here to be with his children and to live out the rest of his life, but I'm guilt-free, and I pray that he was guilt-free when he left here. Forgive, not just for others, but for you. Be sensitive to the Spirit of God, because the power of prayer can literally save someone's life. It saved mine. My mom has gone on to glory, but her prayer is why I'm here. I don't know what would have happened if I had gotten in that car that night. I don't know what would have happened if I had been in the house that night. And thirdly, my family members that are experiencing mental health challenges, they're giving you clues and signs that something is off. Please get them help. Call 911 if you have to. Reach out to the veterans hospitals and find out how you can get into classes or get your soldiers into classes. I'm blessed to be here because of the power of prayer, but it could have gone another way. I'm telling you guys this because I love you. I want to save your life or your family members' lives. So if no one told you today they love you, remember, first and foremost, God loves you, and so do I. I'll see you in the next video.
I can run to you when I'm afraid, for the name of Jesus is my hiding place.